Hello, welcome to this video. My name is Marco Nijen. I'm a trainer at Microsoft. This video is part of a series of videos about the role of a Microsoft cybersecurity architect. In this video, we will focus on the topic of privileges. Discover why securing privileges is crucial in cybersecurity and learn essential strategies to protect identities, ensure compliance, and enhance your security operations as a Microsoft cybersecurity architect. One thing we will discuss in this video is the enterprise access model. And to my surprise, many attendees in trainings I deliver never heard of that model before the training. Wow, that really needs to change. So watch this video. Areas of attention. The content of this video is mostly aligned with the area of security, operations, identity and compliance from a certification perspective. Now let's get started with a question. Why is securing privilege the top priority? That's the question you should be able to answer yourselves already, or hopefully after watching this video. Okay. So what is it? Let's do a little quiz first. Why is securing privileges a top priority from a cybersecurity perspective? Because privileged accounts have access to sensitive data and systems that can cause significant damage if compromised? Or is it because privileged accounts are easy to hack and do not require authentication or authorization? Or is it because privileged accounts are shared among users that do not have any audit trails? Yeah, well, the answer is A. Privileged accounts are those that have more permissions and privileges than normal users, such as administrators, operators, or service accounts. These accounts can access and manipulate critical data and systems, such as databases, servers, network devices, or cloud resources. If an attacker gains control over a privileged account, they can cause severe harm to the organization, such as stealing confidential information, disrupting operations, or installing malware. Therefore, it's essential to secure privileged accounts with strong passwords, multi-factor authentication, least privilege, and regularly monitor them. Securing privileges is important, and in this video, we look at these aspects: privileged access, the enterprise access model, baselines, emergency accounts, and secure workstations. We need to make it hard for the wrong people to access and do something they shouldn't. Verify explicitly, assume breach, and least privilege. There's three principles again from Zero Trust. Let's focus on least privilege. You can't lose what you don't have. If you don't have any permission, you don't need. If you don't need a permission, it cannot be lost or stolen. Think least privilege. In your regular daily life, you may go to the supermarket to buy some groceries. What will you bring with you? Only what you need, right? Maybe you need some money, but not the valuable gold bars and jewels you may have at home. Too dangerous. It might be stolen. But also too much. You don't want to haul that stuff around, and you shouldn't. Think about that and relate that to accounts and privileges. Only have what you need when you need it. The lowest amount of privileges to get the job done. If you have a lot of privileges, it's more likely that when your identity gets compromised or borrowed by someone, there will be more damage. We need to control accounts and the privileges that they use. Years ago, Microsoft constructed a model for identities and privileges, but for cloud, that model was less suitable. The dynamics and responsibilities are different, and also with cloud we are leveraging protocols that are more dynamic in nature, something we discussed in another video around identity. On the screen we see the fundament of the old tiering model. This model was deprecated, but in case you have an isolated private cloud, it can still be leveraged by you to verify or to enhance security aspects. Think of disconnected systems for operational, compliance, physical or legacy purposes like ICS systems and industrial control systems, or SCADA technology, or operational technology. If you're interested in the older model, then please look at the information you can access through the short link referenced on the slide, aka.ms/easy SIA. I find that from a conceptual perspective, there are still a lot of good lessons there, but that said, for cloud, the model was less suitable. So the foundation was rethought and evolved into what we now call the enterprise access model. The enterprise access model replaces the old tiering model that was designed to prevent unauthorized elevation of privilege in an on-premises Windows Server Active Directory environment. It was based on best practices and lessons learned, and yes, it also incorporates, of course, Zero Trust principles. If you follow the guidance of the Cloud Adoption Framework, you will see that the framework is consistent with the enterprise access model. It is all related. Best practice is, well, it's a best practice. We can use this model as a guide, this is the way, like a blueprint. But if we're in an existing situation, we can also use it as the reference to do a gap analysis. The enterprise access model covers all access. Great. But some access is more critical, so we need to prioritize the permissions that would have the most impact if misused, for example by attackers or accidentally. We need to secure privileges, the permissions that allow to manage an environment, so let us focus on that. To effectively secure privileged access means to eliminate unauthorized pathways completely and only allow for a few authorized pathways that are safeguarded and scrutinized. This diagram is explaining more depth in the information about security about privileged access, for which you will find a short link on the slide, aka.ms/SPA, Securing Privileged Access. This strategy needs a comprehensive approach that uses multiple technologies to protect and watch those authorized escalation paths using zero trust principles, such as explicit validation, least privilege, and assume breach. This strategy needs multiple coordinated initiatives that create a holistic technology approach, clear processes, and a strict operational execution to build and maintain assurances over time. Microsoft recommends adopting this privileged access strategy to rapidly lower the risks to your organization from high impact and high likelihood attacks from privileged access. Privileged access should be the top security priority at every organization. Any compromise of these users has a high likelihood of significant negative impact to the organization. Privileged users have access to business critical assets in an organization, nearly always causing a major impact when attackers compromise their accounts. Now, where to get started? Anywhere would be a good place, but maybe start using the Getting Started. There is a rapid modernization plan to help with that. Just like with rapid modernization plans we've seen elsewhere, for Zero Trust, for example, there's a rapid modernization plan for securing privileged access, which focuses on securing the identities and its associated privileges. I suggest you spend a good amount of time with that content on the securing privileged access pages. When I'm working with customers, I heavily make use of the content and the linked content. Securing privileges should be the top priority for securing any environment. And there are success criteria for a privileged strategy. And we need to think about, for example, ruthless prioritization, which means doing the most effective actions with the quickest results first. Even if those efforts don't match existing plans, views, and habits, the strategy outlines the steps that have been learned from any major cybersecurity incident. The lessons from these incidents shape the steps we help organizations take to prevent these crises from happening again or happening to them. While security professionals may be tempted to try to improve familiar existing controls like network security and firewalls for newer attacks, this approach often leads to failure. The Microsoft Incident Response Team has been dealing with privileged access attacks for almost a decade, and regularly sees these classic security methods fail to detect or stop these attacks. While network security provides essential and basic security hygiene, it is crucial to get out of these habits and focus on mitigations that will stop or block real-world attacks. To reduce negative business impact from security controls, you should prioritize invisible security controls that enhance user workflows, or at least don't interfere with or change user workflows. While security-sensitive rules may require visibility, security measures that change their daily workflow to provide security assurances. This implementation should be done carefully to limit the usability impact and scope as much as possible. And there's more. There's always more. And I'd like you to consider this approach for securing privileges also a benchmark, the MCSB. Same elements, same thinking, different approaches, very similar outcome. And yes, they are all aligned. So start with the approach that best suits you and the people you need to interact with. I like to take these elements and think of what it makes me think of. I do some brainstorming, and then verify if in the advisories and the documentation. And for example, we need to have multiple accounts. That would be something to think of. We need to have an account, one for regular things like reading email and maybe browsing the internet, and another one for specific tasks, like administration tasks. But even in that approach, the dedicated administration account should not have any privileges by default. There should be a life cycle and checking if everything is what it needs to be. Essentially, life cycle management, doing housekeeping, keep your house in order. PA5, we have PA5, emergency accounts. What does that mean? Well, accounts that have high privileges need to be secured, and we can use technical features to protect them. For example, multi-factor authentication or privileged identity management. But what if in an emergency that security technology is not available to us? We still need to have a way to access our environment. We need to have emergency accounts, break glass accounts. And a break glass account is a special type of emergency accounts that can bypass most of the normal security measures and grant access to critical systems or resources. Break glass accounts are usually kept locked away by procedures until they are needed for an urgent situation, such as a cyber attack, a natural disaster, or technical failure. Break glass accounts should be monitored closely and carefully guarded, but also regularly tested. You don't want to find out the emergency account doesn't work for you when you need it. And another thing, you have to have at least 2 of them, not just one, because you have to try it one periodically, maybe twice a year, or when there's a significant change in the organization, in the operational staff, and it needs to be reset after using. And you have to one that's in its prestige state. Now, for more detail and guidance, the MCSB can provide you with that. How to do that for multiple platforms, also which rules are involved. So go and check out the MCSB. Another control from the MCSB deals with the physical system that is used by an identity that has privileges. How can we trust the identity and privileges given to that identity if the system is not trustworthy? An attacker that can compromise a PC or a device can impersonate or steal credentials and tokens for all accounts on that system, undermining many or maybe all the security assurances we've set up. So for administrators and sensitive accounts, this allows attackers to escalate privileges and increase the access they have in your organization, often dramatically to the highest level. So controlling the workstation is also important. And there's a lot of guidance on that. And it has been out there for many, many years. So start using the guidance, start doing it. And if you're going to do that in an architecture, you'll find that it is very often hard and it's going to cause a lot of resistance. The most difficult decisions I've had with operators is about securing the device. You may think that cloud means we can work from any place or any device, but that's not the case for security matters. Some privileges are so crucial that we can't use them from any location or any device. We need to control the privilege, the location, and the device. That's how it is. So read the guidance and discuss it well in your enterprise. Let's summarize what we've discussed in this video. We've looked at privilege access and the enterprise access model. We also looked at baselines through the MCSB and we highlighted a couple of specific elements from it. We looked at accounts for emergencies, break glass accounts, and that we also need to think about physical security, securing the workstations that are used for expressing privileges. For more detail, specific topics in this video, again, there's a list of short links that you can leverage for your own learning purposes. Now, thank you for watching this video. There are many more in the series, and maybe you'll see me again in another one. Until that time, stay safe.